I think for us gardeners, we sometimes feel that the weather is a bit challenging just for the sake of it, you know, just to really test our patience. So a perfect example was towards the end of April, so last month. It was amazing weather. It really felt like summer. We were having temperatures of about 25 degrees. And then yesterday morning, the 5th of May, woke up to a minus 2.4 degree frost, which in all honesty was a little bit unprecedented. We weren't expecting it to get that cold. So it's just after 7 AM in the morning and I've just come out to check, and I can tell you there's definitely been a frost. But what am I trying to get at here? Well, the title of this video, as you can see, is Patience is Paramount. And I think the perfect visual example that I need to show you is in the solar tunnel, and we'll go there now. So all that warm weather we had last month can be very misleading, and I thought it was summer. But I also knew, based on previous experience, that we can quite often get hit by almost a single random frost, as we did. So when we have those temperatures, we always try and make sure that we keep the solar tunnel doors open so the grapevine doesn't think, oh, hello, it's time to wake up and grow. And I'm going to show you what happened. So the grapevine is in a very sorry state, and all these are going to drop off. So I came into the solar tunnel yesterday about midday, and the first thing that I was met with was this smell of just rot. And it was amazing how quickly it turned from, the day before it was amazing, lush green and full of growth, and now it's looking very sorry for itself. But fortunately, because it's a perennial, it will bounce back. It's probably set it back around a month, but it will come back. And I am so glad that I didn't transplant my tomatoes, because maybe even if I put a layer of fleece around, and I'll come back to that with the potatoes, I don't think the tomatoes would have made it. And I know that's a bold statement, but I'm so glad I didn't transplant them, because then I would have been in the sticky situation of either having to sow more tomato seeds, hope that I have some spares, or go to a garden centre and get more tomato plants. But let me show you what happened with the potatoes and the difference between a single layer of fleece and a double layer of fleece. So I always like to keep an eye on the weather forecast, and I have a rule of thumb where if it looks like the minimum night temperature is going to be 4 degrees Celsius or below, I will put over a layer of fleece for more of the tender plants. And here we've got 3 rows of first earlies, which I got in a bit late, and they're beginning to grow through. And we have 2 different weather forecasts that we look at. One was showing -1 and one was showing 1. So I thought, okay, and this is an important lesson to myself, I thought I'll just put 1 layer of fleece over. And because it got down to -2.4, unfortunately for 17 gram fleece, it's only effective within about kind of the first between 0 and -2 degrees Celsius. So -2.4 made a bit of a difference. And when I turn this over, you can see the tops of this potato plant has been burnt by the frost, and it's beginning to turn black. But I am so glad that I put this fleece over, because it at least had a bit of defense, because directly underneath it's looking all green and nice, and it's going to send up really good shoots. Now, something that happened as if by chance is I accidentally had a bit too much fleece, so I doubled over a bit, and there's quite a big difference between how this looks and how one looks with a double layer. So we'll just come down, and it's around about here. You can see that there's 2 layers here, and if I just open it up, there we go. So you can see perfectly, it was like this, and this tomato, anyway, the leaves look very similar. This potato plant looks amazing. I can't see any frost damage, and it looks nice, green, lush, and how I'd want it to look. And that's because it had a double layer. So that is a very lucky potato plant. And the others are going to bounce back. But for me now, if it looks like the night temperature is going to be either 1 or 2 degrees, is what the weather forecasts say. I'm going to put a double layer just to be on the safe side, because it always seems to be a bit colder than what they usually say. Now these potatoes will do fine, they'll grow back and be really good, but I'm so glad that I didn't transplant the squash, because even though I would have put a layer of fleece, it wouldn't have been enough, and because they're seedlings they won't have many developed leaves, and if those are all being killed off, then there's no way that they could bounce back, because potatoes are tubers and they store a lot of energy and to easily send up new shoots. But it would have been back to square one with a squash. Sometimes I feel, especially with social media and stuff, there's a bit of a underlying pressure that we put on ourselves as gardeners, and that pressure, especially in a British climate, is to start things as soon as possible. So I know people who start their tomatoes on the 1st of January, which is just mental. Now, if you have enough indoor space or frost-free space to do that, then that's fine. But what I'd say is, and I know a lot of you don't have much space and it's so easy to fill up windowsills, you don't need to rush to start things as early as possible. For example, you can get away with sowing your tomatoes in late April and also your squash. So based on knowing that we have late frost and stuff, we started our squash actually a lot later this year, and they're only tiny seedlings, so I didn't have that worry. And the great thing is that plants seem to have this remarkable way of catching up. So even if you start things off really late, I've noticed over the years that they have this amazing quality of being able to catch up to a point of where you'd expect them to be. So in a lot of ways, there's not really much of a need unless you really want early things and to take that risk. So I think that's something really important. It pays to be patient. So frosts, they're very unpredictable, and we could have a frost in mid-May, but I'm going to make sure that everything is out by mid-May. So this Saturday, the 11th of May, I'm transplanting the tomatoes. Now, I am looking on the long-term weather forecast to see if there are any more cold fronts moving in. And at the moment it looks okay, but what I'd say is always remain vigilant. And if you do need to fleece something, it's a lot easier to fleece a smaller plant than a bigger plant. So remember, it pays to be patient, and patience is paramount.